Saga, there are many, many stories inside of one big story. And in this saga, we also have three periods of time. One is called the Paradis, or in English, the Paradise Time. And the Paradise Time is when the planet was sitting straight up and down before we tilted over. And in the Paradise Time, the whole planet was tropical. And one day, they have something called a Ragnarok. And Ragnarok is one destruction of the Astra system. 50 million, 10,000, 32 years ago, the axle of this planet tilted over. The sea evaporated to the top of the ball, and the ys, or ice, came down, and the whole top of this planet and the whole bottom of this planet was covered in ice, kilometers deep, in 90 days. In this time when this ice came down, there was one part of the planet where the ice didn't come, and the people survived. But in the top of the planet where the ice came down, all people were covered with kilometers of ice. The key to understanding this part of this saga we call the Alt-Lantis time. Alt, A-L-T, A-L-T. Alt means all the. Land means land, and Is means ice. All land, ice. It later became what we call Atlantis today, but the original name was called Alt-Lantis.
Welcome to all Atlantis.
Welcome to Alt-Lantis, or Atlantis, as we know it today. We're sitting here on one island, on Sari, in the middle of the Baltic Sea. And the name for this island is today called Gotland. And in the saga, this island has a very big part in part of this history of our planet. And this island we're sitting on here was in the very middle of this Gulf Stream as it's coming into the Baltic Sea, and as the ice came down, as this ice age began, it didn't stick to the island. It came down, it wasn't part of the glacier system that was up on the flatland. As this warm water rushed in on both sides, it was kept 7, 8 months a year. It was completely like it is right now, green. So the people, they could stay here. It was part of this Atlantis system. This Bach family, these Astra people, over millions of years of time, in this beginning of this Atlantis, these people that were trapped up here in the ice, these Astra, they were brown, they had brown eyes, they had brown hair. But over a long, long period of time, in this 7 months, 8 months of nice weather and 4 or 5 months of really dark weather, 4 months of dark weather, cold, we lost the pigment in our skin, our eyes started to turn blue, and we got light hair. So inside this Atlantis, or Atlantis, is the source, it's the beginning of the white race of people. This warm water that had gone up and had to the top, had always been going over the top of the planet, this Gulf Stream from the Mexico, that had been rerouted into this Baltic Sea to keep this coastline around here ice-free in this glacier time. Finally, after a long, long period of time, it had cut away at the ice at the very top of Norway. And these glaciers were starting to slide away. And this Gulf Stream started to go over the top of the planet again. 10,032 years ago, these Astra people, this Bach family, who were living in hell, which is where Helsinki is today, about 295 miles from here. They realized that they had to come out, that this Atlantis time, this ice time, was about to be over with. The second Ragnarok, or the second destruction of the system, was about to happen. In this system, there was usually the father and the mother 12 sons and 7 daughters. But in this Atlantis system, since they weren't making so many people, they had only the mother, the father, 7 sons and 7 daughters. So they made a smaller system. So 10,032 years ago, the Bach, the swan, the mother and the father, 7 brothers, 7 sisters, and their tour friends, their best friends from this Rousset class. 30 people climbed aboard one boat, and from this hell they brought these domestic animals. They brought the grains at the creation for the agriculture. They had already planted this area in trees, so this place was livable. And these 30 people, they left from hell and they came to this island called Gotland. There was one big difference between these 30 people sitting on this island 10,032 years ago and the rest of the people who inhabited the whole southern part of the planet. These people were Articos, so 10,032 years ago there were only 30 white people on this planet with blue eyes, and they lived on this island. And they came to this island, they went to one place called Visby and up to this place called Lumalunden Cave, and they started to inhabit this area. They also carved some rune stones, and in these rune stones that they find around this island is the story of hell. And these rune stones are almost 10,000 years old. If you know how to read the rune stones, inside was the story of hell carved into stone in what they call rune script, or character writing or letter writing in stone. These people, they lived on this island. About 97 or 9,800 years ago, they went back to the 12 brothers and the 7 sisters system. And somewhere around 96, 9,700 years ago, these 10 brothers in the middle, not the first one Ra, not the 12th one Bach, but these Balders, these 10 brothers in the middle, they went out over this planet and they met up with these 10 tropical kings from these 10 tropical races. The Polynesian, the Aborigine from Australia, the Hindu from Hindustan, the Chinese from China, this old Hellas system, which was the Greek system, this Roman system, which is all these countries around this Mediterranean Sea, the South African, which was the blue man, what we call African people today, and this Inca, Mayan, and Aztec, these 10 tropical races around the planet. Each was one king system from the paradise time. And these 10 brothers, they met up with these 10 tropical kings after millions of years. So the first white man met the first man with color about 96, 9,700 years ago. And they took out the information of agriculture. So in China, you can see agriculture from around 10,000 years ago. South America, you can see agriculture from about 10,000. Africa, all this agriculture was one gift from the Asur to the Vanir people about 96, 9,700 years ago. These 10 brothers, they were called Hanumans. And these 10 brothers, they came back after they had met. So this first article white man with this tropical Vanir people was around this time. They lived on this island for 1,000 years as the glaciers are coming down in Scandinavia. They're coming over Norway. They're coming over Finland, Russia. They're taking all this land away. They're scraping, making lakes, these huge ice mountains. But in this island here in Gotland, it wasn't part of the fastland. So the glaciers, they were safe here. The glaciers were just moving by. 9,032 years ago, this Bach family, these Asur people, this what we would call the Aryan race or the white race of people, they had now started to create one white race of people. And this Pirouette family, this family from this hell, this Bach family, they decided now they could move back to hell and start to rebuild hell again because the ice, the Ragnarok had finished. The destruction was over. So 9,032 years ago, this family, they left from here and they went back to hell, back to where Helsinki is today, the new name for hell. And there they start to live and they start to create one new article race of people which spread out over Russia. So the Finnish people and the Russian people, they're exact same people. They spoke Finnish language until 800 years ago. But something happened in the family. sometimes when they were trying to make many, many children quickly, they had more than 12 sons. And these more than 12 sons could be ambassadors, they could be information people going out. But in this case, two of these brothers, the 13th and 14th son, they had no title in the family because it was only the 12 sons that had the title. So these two brothers, these two kings, they wanted to become kings. So they decided not to go back to Finland, not to go back to hell, to be part of this Oster system there. And one of these brothers was called Dan, and one was called Sven. And they were we two kings. They were the Vikings. And these two brothers, one Sven, he goes to Uppsala, where Uppsala, Sweden is today. And there he makes his capital. And he starts one article race of person there. And from his seed, from the seed of Sven, comes the Norwegians, the Icelandic, the Greenland people, the Scottish people, and the Irish people. They come from the seed of this Swedish king. Dan, the other brother, the other of the two brothers, he goes down to Denmark. He makes the mark of Dan, and mark means land, so the land of Dan. And this Dan, from his seed, comes two kings in Germany. I think their name is Gottrip and Brandenburg. And these first two seeds, is Brandenburg is where Berlin is, and this Gottrip, I think, is where the Lübeck is. I could be mistaken on this, but I put this in. But anyway, the king line of Germany or Saxon, they're coming from the Danish, from his seed. And from this German and from this Danish, from this source story, comes the Austrian, the Swiss, the Dutch, the Holland people, the Belgian people, the English people. So the English is a different race than the Scottish and the Irish. They are another race. They're from the Sven line, whereas England is coming from the Dan line, all the way down to France. So all this Western Europe is coming out from the seed of the Dan. So these two Vikings, these first two kings, 9,032 years ago, they come off from this island and they start this two more white races. There's 3 white races of people. There's 10 tropical races. The oldest white race is the Finnish and the Russians. These are the original white people on the planet. The second and third white people is the Dan, the Danish, and the Swedish. And you could check their hearts to see, and I gave one heart story in the Welcome to Rajasthan. You could check their hearts to see which race they are. And this is his Gotland story. It's probably more to it, but anyway, this is where they came out from in Atlantis. Atlantis was not some kind of UFO story. Atlantis was not some kind of big silver palaces and stuff. It was a period of time, how people lived in nature in the middle of one ice age. And now we leave from the Gotland. This is, I would say, the when we came out from Atlantis. This is the end of the Atlantis story, because Atlantis was crushed over, not with flood. Atlantis was crushed over with glaciers. It was completely crushed 10,032 years ago. this is centrifugal force, the spinning wheel, the earth spinning. And at the very top is one ringland called Udenma, or Hell, or Asgard, or Midgard. At this very center, this ringland here is 250 kilometers across, 125 kilometer radius. And in the very center of this is Valhalla, or Midgård, the middle of the yard, the middle of the land. If you were looking down from the North Star onto the planet, this is what you would see. It's the very North Pole. This is oh, not so much. It's just that this ring here represents Udama, or Hell. And this line here is the meridian, or the meridian line that goes around the planet. There's another one that goes this way, so it divides the planet into 4 hemispheres. This ring is called one Rosti, and Rosti was an information center, so all information is coming from Ras, Tur, Rosti. The even cross is called Rosti, the Christian cross, as they call it today, is called Risti. You'll find that this is the American medicine wheel for the Red Indian. He has a ring with a cross in it, which represents the North Pole. I think this here is this head of this Midgård worm, this snake, this mythical snake. This spiral, or this spiral here, is inside the temple. This is the golden spiral. When you see the spiral, or the spiral has to do with inside this storehouse in the temple, with all these chambers along it. That's what this spiral has to do with. The museum wants to call this a whirling disc because they don't understand what this really represents, the museum, because we've lost this. But this spinning action here, also on this stone here, it's nicer to see on this stone. The whirling disc, this actually represents the centrifugal craft, or the centrifugal force of this planet spinning, looking straight down from the very top when the planet was sitting like this. This center point is Hell, one ring in the middle. We'll look at another one in the middle, and in the center of that ring is the very North Pole of the planet. And as when we died before, we were all burned, and our ash was put under our roots of our family tree. And I've said about how this soul went up through the top, through the leaf, and back into the air as this planet is spinning around and around. So all soul, all spirit on the planet spun around and around and entered this hole, what we call the Holy, or the Hell League, which is on one island a few kilometers over here from in Helsinki, Finland. They always want to say these are weapons when you see one lance, but this lance, this pole with this point on it, actually represented the breeder, because we had 2 forms of the head of the prick. We had one shaped like one klub, or club, and he was one kluba. But if a man had one shaft with one pointed, it was one lancet, and one lancet is one lancera. He's one breeder. So when you see the klub, or the lance, or the sword, these are not, these people had no warfare. Their war was making children. Here's another one here of the centrifugal. You can see this ring in the middle represents the ringland at the top of the planet Hell, and the little dot that's in the very center represents Valhalla, the heaven for the Vikings, which in root language they call Himmel. In Finnish they call it Taivaan, or Taivas. So this small hole in the very center represents the hole in the very top of the axle of the planet. There's one hole today. I explained it in the Welcome to Hell tape. And this has to do with the tour. It's 2 offering systems. Looks to be like snakes, but this is, I think, one bird. This probably is feminine here. The woman is the bird. The man, he's not the bird. So when you see a bird's head, it usually has to do with Akka, Ella, or Guma. These stones are almost 10,000 years old. They want to give a date of 600, 700, because that's when their whole history, their Viking history began. But these rune stones here in Gotland, when they came out of the ice 10,032 years ago, they came to Gotland from this hell because of these glaciers were coming down. And they carved these stones, and all these rune stones is the story of hell. And this thing around the side has to do with some kind of offering system. When the church came along, our whole offering system completely changed. In the saga, they talk about a queen in this highest family on the planet called Pirouet. The first daughter was called Maya. And Maya is where the word May comes from. Mayan Indians, Mai. The corn's called mais, maize. And this Mai, she had 6 sisters. And these 6 sisters were called hexa, like hexagram. So 6 hexa. So this is what we call one hexa, which means witch in English. Hexa means a witch in root language or Swedish. And in Finnish language, she's called Noita. And there she's sitting there in this position. And here's one tour system. She's making offering systems. These 7 sisters are all the women on the planet are offering to these 7 sisters. These 6 sisters, this Hexa, their sister Maya, the queen, and their mother, who is called Guma or Akka or Ella. It's not so much to say for this, except you can see that in these rune stones they all have one helmet, which this is the form of the phallic, which is one, many of these rune stones have this forehead, the head that hangs in 4. I think these guys here are coming, they're Robbies, they're bringing seed up in one offering system. This here is one of these domestic animals called cow that they created in hell in this Atlantis period. This animal was created from the goat. They made the cow, the pig, and the sheep. They're all created creatures in English. They're domestic animals. They say here 9th century. They're only about 9,000 years off when they're dating here. Not so much, 9,000 years. Because they don't know their history anymore. They have no idea that the Swedish and the Danish people are over 9,000 years old. They have no idea. They think they come from Germany. So the museum today, they're just guessing, and they're guessing very bad. Without the Bach saga, they'll never find out anything. They'll just keep guessing and giving wrong answers, so the children get the wrong answers one after one after one. And then their children get the wrong answers one after one. You can see up here at the top, this is one breeder. He has one lance with one sharp point. The swords are not have nothing to do with killing each other. The swords is one breeding symbol. The sword has one what they call ood, and ood is one blunt end, which represents this breeding system. And of course, these discs, they represent the sun. The full moon is one disc, and one disc is one Shiva. This round ring, with the hole in the middle like a donut, this is Udin. There's one white ring around the sun with the sun shining out. And this looks like this is one Maya or one swan over here with this dress on. It's hard to tell, but it represents one of these women in this pantheon of the highest family on the planet. Like I said, all these rune stones are the story of hell. They put them into, when they first came out from hell, they wrote this stuff down. There were 7 hills in hell. Here's 7 here. There was always 7 of these 12 boys in the middle, called Bal, Bok, and Balder. And each of these brothers, there was one sitting, and there was 7 temples in hell. And when the Robbies came from all over the planet, bringing the seed up, bringing the offering up, they were offering to these 7 hills in hell. And there was one of these Bal, Bok, and Balders sitting on these 7 hills, and they offered to these, and these 7 brothers came back into the ring with the other 5 brothers and the father. There was 13 in all together, 12 boys and the Allfather. And this is part of an old system of offering here. And this is Ukko and Akka, which was Bach and Swan. You can see he has this pointed pointed head. So it means that he also has this sword, which means he's the breeder. This is Akka. She has, maybe this is one moon, which represents her daughter Maya. The woman is the lock, and the man is the key to the lock. But the woman, she holds the key to the lock. She's the Lady Luck. There's 10 shields here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This represents the 10-10 Tio. These are the 10 brothers in the middle, I think. The picture stone imaginary provides us with a unique insight into prehistory. Apart from the religious beliefs, myths, and legends, they convey details and realistic depictions of people's appearances, dress, and activities, as well as of those various constructions of use of ships, houses, and weapons. Yeah, it's unique insight in prehistory if you know what they mean, but if you don't know the meaning, it's no insight to it at all. It's some just incredible stones carved, but if you don't know what the characters are. Eeyore, he knew. There's other people in the saga who can explain these stones much better than me. And there's not so much more to say in this. I think the main one we have to say is in the Stockholm Museum.
Welcome to all Latvian.
This is a good one here because when Bach was in hell, he had a cart with 8 goats. And here he shows him a cart with these goats pulling. He had 8 of these goats. He shows 2 here, but there's actually 8 goats that pulls him. This is the swan here. She's also called Jotun. This is Balder. I'm not sure. I think he's still a Balder here. He has one lance, which is a symbol for the breeder. This must be Ra and Maya, because here's the full moon. So this is probably Ra and Maya because they represent the moon. It's not so much to say except this is Solboken Balder with his helmet. And this shield is this centrifugal craft, or the centrifugal force of the planet spinning. Looking from the top down, this is Valhalla in the middle. This sword here has one penis head. with one pointed head instead of one club form, and this is the form of his breeding decoration is the form of this. This here is one loud score, like one horn. Today they say they were drinking beer and ale, but before it was for offering seed up to the fathers. So here we have slate here. The man on top, he's called Sulbuk and Baltic, or Lenentine. He has one helmet, and he's got his hand, and he has one breeding decoration on one point, which makes him the breeder. There was two forms. One was a club, and one was a lance or a point. These 8 legs that he has here, they represent the 8 towers of hell. Hellbach, E, Uden, Ra, Tur, Freya. 8 towers, these 8 legs. This construction here, Valhalla Valley, sitting on one island over in front of Helsinki, Finland. This was sitting right on the North Pole. Valhalla is Valhalla, and Val means one gate. So this is the gate of Valhalla, or the gate of heaven. Behind it was one tower called Glance Him. The Our Father was standing looking down to the gate of heaven. The Buddha came from Finland.
Welcome to all the land.
Susi means wolf. Luola, I think, is cave, the wolf cave. Susi is also like Susi, where we made this North Pole story. $50,010,032 years ago, the axle of this planet tilted over. The sea evaporated to the top of the ball, and the ys, or ice, came down, and the whole top of this planet and the whole bottom of this planet was covered in ice, kilometers deep, in 90 days. And in this time when this ice came down, there was one part of the planet where the ice didn't come. and the people survived. But in the top of the planet where the ice came down, all people were covered with kilometers of ice. And when this ice came down, it made one dome on the top of the planet. And there's this warm water that comes from the Gulf of Mexico. Still today, it's called the Gulf Stream. And this warm water coming from this Gulf of Mexico came across the Atlantic Ocean, up the coast of Norway, and continued over the top of the planet. It was one stream of water that constantly brought warm water up to the top of this planet. But when this ice came down and covered this ball, the top of this ball in one ice cap, this warm water from the Gulf of Mexico, as it came up towards Norway, this cap of ice would not let this water continue over the top of the planet. So as this warm water came up and came to this ice cap, it hit the ice cap and was rerouted down the coast of Norway and went into the Baltic Sea, the Gulf of Finland. So this warm water has been rerouted in, and as this ice came down, it melted and created one hole in the ice. All of this area around the Baltic Sea, within a few kilometers of the coast, it didn't freeze. And this Oster family, this Bach family, they survived this ice. But now they're trapped in ice. They're in isolation, and they have no contact with the rest of the planet. Before, they had one contact system of an all-father and an all-mother standing here at the top that had one breeding system and one information system that went to all places on this planet as the people inhabited it. And so as this warm water came into the Baltic Sea, it created one warm zone where these people, they could survive. But these people in the Paradise time, we were all brown. We all had brown eyes. We were all vegetarian on this whole planet. But this small group of people who got trapped in this isolation in this place we call Alt Land Is, all lands ice, which is Frankenland, France, Switzerland, Saxonland, Ireland, Scotland, England, Svealand, Sweden, Denmark, Danland, Norland, Finland, Rusland, Greenland. All these lands were ice. Below the Pyrenees Mountains you have Spain, Portugal, Italy, Morocco, Argentina, Gambia. There's no lands below this ice system. Today we have New Zealand, named by the Dutch. We have Swaziland, we have Thailand, but these are all new names. So all the lands became ice, except for this one area around the Baltic Sea, where we sit today, a few kilometers from this coast over here. And inside this Atlantis, these people had to start to live a completely different life as we did. Before, it was a 24-hour golden circle of light, banana papaya up here, but now with this ice, these people had to change everything. We became with 4 seasons. In this situation, these people, they started to create agriculture because they needed to store food for the winter, which we didn't need in the tropics. So they made 4 seed: the wheat, the barley, the oat, and the rye. And we could store this food in this 7 months of nice weather around this coast, and then 4 months of complete dark frozen. So these people, they had to store food for this 4 or 5 months of this dark winter that they have still here today. They also started to create what we call article domestic animals, because now for the first time in the history we had to start eating meat. And before the ice time we had one animal called the goat that had one hoof. And this goat, since it was the symbol for the Bach family, they had no feeling to eat this goat. So from the goat, over a long period of time, this goat started to develop into different animals. And from the goat, they made the cow, the pig, and the sheep. These are article, domestical animals created by these Asar people inside of Atlantis. So they had food to eat, meat to eat in this wintertime. From the peacock, a tropical bird, beautiful, they had no feeling to eat the peacock. So from the peacock, over a long period of time, they made it into the chicken. From the dove, they made the pigeon, which we can also eat the pigeon. So these people, they started to create agriculture, domestic animal, a completely different life than we had in the Paradis. From the palm tree, they started to create what we call the evergreen trees, these trees that stay green all year long. These are the product of a long period of time coming from the palm tree, but they grow very quickly because they needed much wood to burn in this 4 months of complete darkness and cold. So they created new trees, they created article animals, domestic animals to eat, and agriculture. These people in Atlantis, they lived in small houses. I think they were 6 meters by 6 meters. 24 people in each house, 12 women on one side of the fire and 12 men on the other side of the fire. And the women never left the house except to go to the toilet in these 4 or 5 months of cold, freezing, dark weather. They stayed inside. All their children were born in the end of March. So these children inside these small houses, they had holes in the walls so they could pull one cork, one plug from the wall. And the sun, Udin, could shine one strala into the small house so these children, the mothers, could hold these babies. And as this straw of light, they could put this light of the sun onto the head of this baby so it could get sun, because we need the sun. In May, they could come out, and from May, June, July, August, September, October, November, they could live outside. They could create what they needed. But come December, January, February, March, they had to go back inside these small houses. And these people, they're living inside this Atlantis time. Many, many millions of years. The human race is much, much older than what they want to say today. For millions of years, these people lived inside this ice time. They made our games, checkers, backgammon, chess, all these games they created. The cards. The cards are 52 cards, 52 weeks to the year, 4 seasons, 13 weeks in each season, 13 cards in each suit. So this whole card system is made on this new system of 4 seasons instead of 1 tropical season. In the saga, it said these people, they lived around this Baltic Sea. And over a long, long, long period of time, we started to lose the pigment in our skin. From brown, we start to get lighter and lighter and lighter. Our brown hair started to get lighter and lighter and lighter, and our brown eyes slowly, slowly became blue and green eyes. So in the saga, it says the original white people on the planet came here in the Finland during this ice age. From a lack of sun, from a lack of light, over a long, long period of time, we became what they call one article race of people. This cave behind us is one cave called Wolf Cave. We're here in a little place called Karajoki, Finland, South Finland, not so far from the coast. So all this area here was all like it is right now in the summertime, beautiful. Inside, you go inside the Finland, there came one wall of ice. But all along this Baltic Sea, all the way Leningrad to St. Petersburg, all the way Helsinki, all Sweden, this water comes up between Sweden, this part of this Baltic Sea comes between Sweden and Finland. All this area, for 7 months of the year, it was beautiful like it is today. And these people, they lived here. This cave is one, I don't know, you maybe not call it one scandal, but it's one thing that the museum, they have no story. How could anybody be living here in the South Finland? They say that this cave is more than 130,000 years old. And there's a settlement of people who were living in this place right here. 130,000 years ago, inside of what should have been glaciers, without the understanding of the Baltic Sea becoming this Gulf Stream it would be impossible for this place to have any kind of life. But because of this warm water, there was life. There were people living here. And these people who were living in this cave 120,000 years ago, they were called Asur. They were Finnish people. They were white. They had light hair, blue eyes, and they spoke Finnish language. They're not Neanderthals. They're Finnish. The Northern Europe people came from here. They didn't come up this way. They are not Neanderthals. And the reason we don't find skeletons and find graveyards or human bones is because in the Paakana time, in the Hedning time, or the pagan time in English, we had no graves. We burned everybody. Everybody was cremated and their ash was put under a tree. So they'll never find any old bones from human beings. But inside this cave, they found fire. That means there was forest here in the middle of what should have been glaciers. They found tools human beings were making. And they found mastodon bones. Mastodon. That's an arctical elephant. That's a cold water elephant. There were mastodons walking around this place 120,000 years ago. And 120,000 years ago is older than anything anywhere. The pyramids are 6,000 years old. The Stonehenge is 6,000 or 8,000 years old. They find things, they found settlements maybe 20, 30,000, but 120,000 years, there is no settlement anywhere that I've seen anywhere that says there were people living. Of course, the museum, they want to deny all this because they have no idea. But in the Bach Saga, it says, yes, this was part of Atlantis. This is part of the Atlantis. So we're sitting in one settlement of the oldest settlement known to human beings. But the Musevia Rasta here, they have no story for these people, so they want to really disclaim it. They don't want to listen to the Bach Saga. They don't think that an oral story could be true. And these people living in this cave 120,000 years ago were Arctical people. As this warm water kept going up, being rerouted into the Gulf of Finland, into the Baltic Sea, eventually this warm water finally cut away at the glaciers at the top of Norway, at the top of Sweden, at the top of Russia. And about 10,000 years ago, a little more, these glaciers cut loose and they started to slide down. And these people who lived in this Atlantis, they knew they had to come out. And 10,032 years ago, they came to one island called Gotland. But this place that we sit now, it is one settlement, according to the Bach Saga, of Atlantis. This is the Atlantis that they talk about. The Atlantis is one story created by, we first hear from a guy called Plato in Greece, who said he got the story from Egypt. And this first pharaoh that went to Egypt 6,000 years ago, he was from Finland, the first pharaoh. He was one white man, blue eyes, yellow hair. And he took the understanding to build pyramid down to the Egypt. And there he explained that he was one descendant of these Atlanteans. And from there the story went to the Plato. And the Plato, he wrote a few pages or a few words about this place called Atlantis, or what we call Atlantis. People look everywhere on this planet. Caribbean, the Atlantic, all over this place. Where could this be? What did they do in Atlantis? But in Atlantis, it's where the white people came from. It's where the domestic animal comes from. It's from where the agriculture comes from. And that's where we are today. So this is, I don't know, this may be the first place that we can actually say this is Atlantis, according to the Bach Saga. In this cave here, there were people living here. We've tried to contact the museum, but they don't want to hear anything we have to say about the saga. They already know it all. But the problem is, all they know is 1250, because in 1250, we became under the Swedish here, and the Finnish history is lost. So the museum, they have no answer. They have no idea they were even a kingdom before. They have no idea that they had a king and queen in Finland. They have the name Kuningas and Kuningatar, which means king and queen. So they sit and they deny it all. So this is just one more little piece to try to find things that make the Bach saga to be true. And we'll put that like that for now.